a day where the WWE is no longer run by Vince McMahon? Is that something that you foresee in the foreseeable future for both of you guys before I ask my second question? And that's
Well,
going to be related to
yeah.
CM Punk. But let me ask this question first.
Well, as Moxley said, he's going to die in the chair. And the problem with that is, could this be a situation where, because, Vince McMahon's mother is still alive. And as Dean Ambrose said, we want Triple H to take over. But guess what? Triple H is 50 and, Vince McMahon is 70, 73. And his mother is in her 90s and she's playing tennis. So could we be waiting for Vince McMahon in his 90s still running World Wrestling Entertainment? And that's the problem is, when you have an old man like this, I hate to say that, but when you have an old man like this, you worry about him becoming senile, and and that's what seems like is happening, and he's out of touch with the current generation, and that's what makes WWE so vulnerable right now, is that they're not going to be, because you can obviously tell that the people in charge of AEW, specifically Tony Khan, are in tune with what this current generation wants in professional wrestling, because he's young enough to understand that. Triple H is too. Triple H is very, very, very smart in regards to what the trends are with wrestling. And TakeOver last night was a great example. I can't wait to talk about TakeOver.
We're going to talk about that because I watched.
Yeah. So just to close out my point, there will be a day that WWE is not run by Vince McMahon unless Vince McMahon, up until he's in his 90s, is running WWE, and the product becomes so horrible that people abandon it, and then it gets bought out. So. It's really I don't think there'll be, and there's no one that can convince him to give it up. So it's just a matter of, will he survive into his 90s, and then will that make the product so horrible that it gets bought out?
For you, Brandon.
Well, for me personally, we could say we want about Triple H running this, Triple H running that. You know what my reaction to all this is? I mean, and we could say we want about his boring feud with Reigns. Poor Shane. I mean, seriously, this guy has gotten the complete short end of the stick, like, his entire time. Like, at least Stephanie McMahon has, like, a big time backstage role. Like,
but she's not. But she's not involved in creative. She's not involved in creative at all. There's only two people: Triple H and Vince. And Shane McMahon is not an innovator in that sense. So
no.
Shame on Shane, in my opinion.
No, but I mean, like, he was never, like, given the chance or anything. Like, he wanted to purchase UFC. He wanted to run WCW and ECW. He wanted to run ECW when it was reborn back in 2006. He wanted to be a CEO after Linda McMahon resigned to run for Senate, and he was never ever, like, given the opportunity to run with that. He was never, like, because Vince McMahon named himself CEO, and literally a couple months later, Shane McMahon resigned. Like, I just feel bad, like, personally, like, you know what? Because according to, like, other interviews, like, Shane McMahon backstage is, like, unlike the other McMahons, he's an utter sweetheart backstage, at least according to other interviews. Like, unlike Stephanie McMahon, who forced a backstage writer to go back and apologize for using the wrestling term blading because it's a mark term or whatever like that. Or the bark like a dog segment from Vince McMahon publicly with Trish Stratus. I mean, backstage, apparently, Shane McMahon was an utter nice person, completely. So I just feel bad, like, because, he's different from the other McMahons, like, allegedly. I just feel bad. I just wish he was given a chance. But to further, anyway, that was just a side note. Yeah, I mean, I think it's literally... It goes back to that pipe bomb that CM Punk did in 2011. Like, it's going to literally take Vince McMahon dying for him to not be the chairman anymore. Basically, I just think that's going to happen, and we'll see what happens. But, like, right now, it is not looking good right now, at least for the main roster. NXT is still balls to the wall completely. But
okay, so
can we agree on one thing about CM Punk's podcast? I mean, I'm sorry, CM Punk's pipe bomb, that we can look back now and kind of revise and say he was partially wrong. He is correct about Vince dying, and I actually agreed when he said this, that it wouldn't be any better with the rest of the family plus the doofus son-in-law. Believe it or not, he's proved me wrong, and I think you guys would agree. The doofus son-in-law has got what it takes, man. I mean, he's putting on a great freaking product. down there in NXT. So
yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about NXT certainly in the second half of our show, and we'll talk a lot about Triple H, I'm sure, in his role and sort of how he's shaping up the NXT brand of the WWE. But I want to go back to a couple things that the both of you talked about when it came to CM Punk. And CM Punk is a name that we haven't seen in the wrestling world for quite a while. And this kind of ties back to the Jon Moxley shoot interview. And I'm gonna go out there and see what our listeners think and see what you guys think, because obviously not only you are my co-host, but you guys are my wrestling analyst and insider. Do you guys envision CM Punk coming back to professional wrestling now that there's a company like AEW in North America? What's your feelings on that for the both of you guys?
I think he'll show up at All Out. I really think he will. It's I believe it's in Chicago. I think he'll make an appearance there. I think in every single I could see this a potential trend. Like with the first All In pay-per-view, Bret Hart made an unexpected appearance. Maybe that's a trend that will continue to happen with like famous wrestlers who don't always primarily have to be in the WWE, obviously. Maybe it could be other veterans like from Ring of Honor, New Japan, or even TNA. I think anybody is fair game from another company to show up there. But I could definitely see CM Punk showing up at the All Out pay-per-view easily.
yeah, he's going to be at All Out. I mean, this is just too much steam in that direction. There's no reason why he wouldn't. He's going to get a monster payday, a great schedule, and it's not. He could come back to wrestling on his terms because it's not WWE, and it's for the right reasons. He's friends with the Young Bucks. Even actually, ironically, even a guy like Dean Ambrose, when the Shield was first being formed, Dean Ambrose was the only one that wasn't part of the list of CM Punk wanted in the Shield was Roman Reigns. He wanted Chris Hero, but I don't see. There's too many people in that company that he could gravitate towards, and he's still in wrestling terms 40 years old. It would be the equivalent, in my opinion, of Hulk Hogan going to WCW. And
Really?
what I mean by that is not in terms of, because when Hogan went, he was washed up, but because they had Hogan and he reinvented himself, obviously it was the greatest acquisition they ever had, and for good and bad. But with CM Punk, because of just how famous of a name he is now in terms of wrestling history, for them to get him, it would be the biggest acquisition for a wrestling company since Hogan. So, and I think he'll be there. He's going to be there, and it's going to really make the TNT debut just, WWE is in just such a bad. If I was WWE, what I would do, I was going to save this for my takeover section, but I'm going to just get it out of the way now because we're going towards the subject of TNT with all that stuff, competition. If I was WWE, now obviously it's not going to happen because Vince McMahon, as we all know, is going to stay in charge, and it's going to be Raw and SmackDown and whatever. If I was WWE, I would take NXT and I'd put it on Tuesday nights on FS1. And I'm not saying that it would get better ratings in TakeOver. I mean, I'm sorry, then the unnamed show that will probably be on Tuesday nights on TNT. But the reason why I would put it on Tuesday nights is because it would take away some of AEW's audience. And I have a similar idea for AEW, where I think that AEW should hold a pay-per-view the same night as WrestleMania. And I know that sounds crazy, but the reason why I think they should do that is because, of course, they're not going to get as many buys as WrestleMania. That's impossible, or as many views or trending or whatever. But it will be guaranteed to take a chunk of WWE's revenue from WrestleMania. It will. I mean, there's just too many people out there that are gravitating towards this new alternative. So those two angles I'm going with. I think if WWE was smart, because CM Punk is going to be coming in, and there's going to be too many WWE factions coming in. If they were smart, elevate NXT to a 1-hour show on FS1 and take away TNT second hour, right there, boom. And AEW, if I was them, I would go for a WrestleMania night pay per